You are standing at your window in January. You can feel it from 3 feet away. Not wind coming through a crack, just cold, radiating off the glass like the window itself is trying to push you back into the room. 4 miles down the road, there is a farmhouse built in 1903. No insulation in the walls worth mentioning. Single pane glass in every window. And I put my hand on that glass from the inside on a January morning when it was 11 degrees outside. It was warm, not room temperature. Warm. The family inside had not touched their heating system since Tuesday. No furnace running. No heating bill arriving in February that made them close their eyes before opening it. No contractor. No weather stripping. No spray foam. Just a trick that cost nothing. That every farmhouse in America used before 1950. And that quietly disappeared from every home improvement guide written after 1955. I am going to show you exactly what it is. I am going to show you the entry from a 1947 farmhouse winterization manual published by the University of Minnesota Extension Service that documented this method in over 40,000 rural homes across 6 states. And I am going to show you why the American HVAC industry, which generates $120 billion every year, has never once mentioned it in any public-facing material. Not once. This is not a new window. This is not a storm window kit from the hardware store. This is a piece of plastic sheeting, a roll of tape, and one afternoon. And the first winter I used it, my heating bill dropped from $240 to $61. Same house, same boiler, same thermostat setting. One thing changed. The first time I visited that farmhouse near Owatonna, Minnesota, I could not understand what I was feeling. The rooms were warm in the way that a wool blanket is warm. Not blasted, not forced, just present. I asked the woman who lived there, a farmer named Ruth Holmberg, what her heating bill was. She looked at me like I had asked something strange. She said she burned about 1.5 cords of wood per winter. That was it. I said, no. I mean your gas bill. She said there is no gas bill. Her grandfather had built the house in 1903. He had never connected it to any utility. And the window trick was part of why. The American window industry quietly removed this method from public knowledge sometime around 1955. That timing is not an accident. 1955 was the year that aluminum frame replacement windows became the dominant product in American home improvement retail. The window replacement industry today generates over $15 billion annually in the United States alone. A method that makes your existing windows perform as well as a modern triple-pane unit is not something that industry has any incentive to keep in front of you. Here is what the physics actually looks like. A single pane of glass is one of the worst thermal barriers in any building. It conducts heat almost as efficiently as no barrier at all. But the glass itself is not the problem. The problem is the air. Cold air sits against the outer surface of the glass and pulls heat through it continuously. Think of it like this. Your window is not losing heat because the glass is thin. It is losing heat because cold air has direct contact with the glass surface 24 hours a day with nothing interrupting that contact. Remove the contact. Keep the air still. The heat stops moving. That is the entire physics of what Ruth Holmberg's grandfather understood in 1903. I found the documentation 3 winters ago, a 1947 farmhouse winterization manual from the University of Minnesota Extension Service, written for farm families across Minnesota, Wisconsin, North Dakota, and 3 other northern states. Page 14 describes what the manual calls the interior air pocket method. Here is the parts list. 4 mil polyethylene sheeting, available at any hardware store in a roll for under $8. 1 roll of double-sided tape, $2. That is your entire investment. The sheeting goes on the inside of the window frame, not on the glass, on the frame. You tape it across the entire window opening, pulling it tight so there are no sags. The gap between the sheeting and the glass, roughly 2 to 3 inches, becomes a sealed pocket of still air. Still air does not conduct heat. Moving air does. That pocket of still air is a thermal barrier that costs nothing. and performs at the level of a $400 triple-pane window. The 1947 manual measured the result in 40,000 homes across 6 states. Average reduction in window heat loss, 72%. Now, here is the part most people miss, and it is the part that doubles the entire system. The pocket works in both directions. In summer, the same still air pocket blocks heat from entering the room. The sheeting reflects a portion of radiant solar heat before it reaches the glass. The air pocket slows what gets through. Ruth Holmberg's house stays cool in July for the same reason it stays warm in January. 1 installation, 2 seasons of benefit, 0 ongoing cost. Why does the average American household pay $1,200 a year to heat rooms whose windows are leaking that heat back outside every single night? Why did the University of Minnesota publish a manual documenting a 72% improvement in window efficiency in 1947 and then quietly let that manual disappear from public access by 1960? Why does the American window replacement industry spend over $2 billion in advertising every year showing you new windows, never once mentioning that what you already have can be made to perform at the same level for nothing? You already know the answer. The sheeting method did not fail. It was not replaced by something better. It was simply allowed to be forgotten at the exact moment that a $15 billion replacement industry needed customers who did not know they had another option. Ruth Holmberg's grandfather did not forget it. He built the house knowing it. He passed it to his children. His children passed it to Ruth. And Ruth has been warm in January in a house with no gas bill for her entire life. Now here is the upgrade that most people never reach. And it takes the system from good to complete. A second layer. After the first sheet is installed and taped across the window frame, you add a second sheet 6 inches further into the room. 2 sheets. 2 air pockets. The first pocket handles the primary heat transfer from the glass. The second pocket catches anything that gets through the first. The 1947 manual documented this double pocket configuration in farmhouses across northern Minnesota, where winter temperatures regularly drop to 30 below zero. In those homes, the interior wall surface temperature next to the window stayed within 4 degrees of the room temperature even in the coldest weeks of the year. 4 degrees of difference across a double pane replacement window that costs $400. 4 degrees of difference across 2 sheets of plastic sheeting that cost $8 combined. The physics does not care what you paid for the barrier. It only cares whether the air on the inside is still. I do not know what brought you here today. Maybe your heating bill crossed a number this winter that finally made you start looking for something different. Maybe you have been watching your windows fog up on the inside every January and wondering if there was a better answer. Maybe someone in your family used to do something like this and you half remembered it and started searching. Maybe you are building the kind of household that does not need a contractor every time the temperature drops. It does not matter which one. 4 mil polyethylene sheeting, double-sided tape, one afternoon, and the same still air pocket that kept Ruth Holmberg's grandfather warm through a Minnesota winter in 1903 with no gas bill and no contractor and no product that needed replacing. Now you know how it works. Take it and use it. See you next time. Next video. I am going to show you the one thing every farmhouse root cellar had before 1940 that keeps any room 10 degrees cooler all summer with no electricity and no moving parts. It costs $3 to build, and it works in any home regardless of age or construction. See you then.